right, guys, welcome. This is Grandmaster Eugene Perelshteyn. Today, we're going to be covering a really exciting topic, especially if you love to play Open Sicilian as white. And we're going to be talking about a very, very rare move, Queen D3 in the Najdorf. So as you are joining, let's give you a couple more moments here to ask a very tricky question, let's put it that way. Some of you may even know the move I'm talking about, but most of you have actually no clue as well. So the moves we're going to be talking about is the Open Sicilian E4, C5, Knight F3, D6, D4, takes. This is, everybody knows this one. And now the Najdorf. Now, you've probably seen lots and lots of setups against the Najdorf. And the move that we're going to be discussing is the move Queen D3. So first, let me know in the chat, as I always like to ask people questions, and I want to see answers in the chat. Who has seen the move Queen D3 before? And also, you can let me know if you've never seen this move. That's going to give me some idea too. Not me. Okay, some people. I play this as black, and it is in 0 of my files. Okay, that's good to know. 0 in your files. I've never seen it. I know it exists, but I've never played it. For those who play the Najdorf, you may actually answer some of these questions, right? Because you probably may have seen this Queen D3, maybe not. But the point is what we're going to discuss today. This looks extremely dubious move at first. You're not developing your pieces. The queen on D3, as Jed correctly pointed out, can simply be attacked, knight D7, knight C5, knight D5, right? So queen is vulnerable. And it's also like kind of violating one of the opening principles. Don't move your queen out early. So this is a big question. When you may play this move, or you may see this move, you would think, who is this Patsa, right? Who is this beginner player plays like this? But actually, this move has been seen at the top. But some of the best players, Jordan van Forest, if that name rings a bell, one of the young superstars, Dutch superstars, he actually won the Tata Steel tournament 2 years ago, where he tied for first with Geary using this move Queen D3. He won a beautiful game against another top player, Grandilius. And guess what? Magnus picked it up, and now we know Magnus hired Van Forest to be his second when Nepo challenged Magnus for the crown. So this guy is serious. When you see 2700 like that play a move, and he's Magnus's second, I think he is the next Dubov, right? We talked about Dubov and his opening ideas. This move is really interesting. So today, that's going to be our topic. We're going to try to understand, is this really silly? Is this a move for one game, or is this a serious setup? Yes, Austin, that's right. Queen F3 is actually one of the Najdorf moves, believe it or not. But Queen D3 and Queen F3 are kind of similar, but also different. Yeah, he did win against Geary on tiebreak. That's right. But first, we're going to play a little game. Okay, you guys ready for a little game? Without turning on the database, let's guess the number, in terms of popularity, how common is Queen D3 in the database? So who wants to guess? Is it top 5, top 10? What number is this if I turn on in the database? Let's not do percentage. Let's do like just numbers, is it, what's the most popular move? You would probably guess number 1 is Bishop E3. Probably the most popular. Bishop G5 is probably in that range, right? Bishop C4 is getting Bobby Fischer's move, kind of out of fashion these days. F3 is the same as Bishop E3. Okay, so let's see. Whoever said 13 is actually not that far from the truth. This is actually a good guess, guys. It's actually not number 13. Not number 10. You're going in the wrong direction. Not number 14. That's it. It's either 16 or 17 based on which database you use. How insane is this, that this move is not even in the top 10 and yet strong GMs play it? How many legal moves? That's right. So just to name you a bunch of moves, okay, we don't have to count, but obviously there's this, there's this, there's this, there's this, there's this, there's A3, there's H3, there's rook G1, there's knight B3, there's bishop C4, of course there's bishop E2, there's queen F3, what else? There's G3, and probably, oh, and there's bishop D3. This bishop D3 move is kind of getting popularity. Anyway, so, oh yeah, rook G1 is a serious move. Nepo played it, yeah, with the idea to save a tempo on H3 to play G4. So let's talk a little bit about openings. Now, if you are a Najdorf player, well, what can I tell you guys? You got to know a lot of stuff, because these days, any one move you may be able to see, because there's no one most popular move these days. Najdorf is considered one of the best openings. As a result, there's no obvious advantage in any of the lines. So what people do, they try to surprise you by trying one of these moves, right? So as a result, you got to know a lot, and especially a lot of sidelines. So this is very important information. I wouldn't say it's automatic 0-1, but what is important is you got to know a lot of sidelines as black. And for instance, if I were to play the Najdorf, I would be kind of scared. I have to know this super sharp English attack and this bishop G5 stuff. And then on top of that, all the other lines, right? So to me, Najdorf is just a huge, huge, huge opening. But okay, let's say we are learning this queen D3. Of course, if you are the Najdorf player, this is important for you to know as well. What's the most natural reply as black? So who wants to guess? Knight BD7. Yeah, most people are probably going to play this move because it's the most flexible move. The knight can jump. And the knight BD7, you allow yourself B5 or maybe E6 or G6 options. But first things first, okay, let's look at E5. That's going to be our kind of, as a typical Najdorf player, you should probably ask yourself a question. Why on earth can't I play E5 and hit this knight? So who wants to answer this question? Of course, knight F5, right, guys? Now the queen is doing a valuable job. When the bishop takes, pawn takes, the queen is actually helping the bishop get out of G5 and white can castle. And we're going to look at this. That's exactly our main line. So bishop takes F5. Now, bishop E6, I don't like as much. It has been played, but of course, you can simply play bishop G5 and dominate on the light squares. So this one I don't like as much. So bishop takes F5, I think, is the most logical, and D5. So now it looks like black is doing something really good in this opening, right? Stopping any knight B5, bishop B5. Obviously, nothing's happening there. Massive center, and we got the double pawns. But bishop G5, that's right, guys. Now the D pawn is under attack, and unfortunately for black, he cannot maintain such beautiful center. One of the pawns has to move, probably the D pawn. Yeah, the D pawn is under pressure, and look at that. Knight E4, another pin, knight B7, castles. And once again, we see the benefit of this queen D3 move, allowing rapid development. The knight has this nice outpost, and after the logical move bishop E7, white has interesting move F4. And I think if black doesn't know how to play here, he could easily get in trouble. Two bishops, the board is opening up, right? And the king is still not castled. So the center is getting destroyed. So this is why I don't like E5 for black. But you have to know this, that natural moves don't, like E5, don't just punish queen D3. So we're going to look at the moves E6 as well. We're going to look at the move G6. And we're going to look at the main move knight BD7. So let's start with knight BD7 first. That's the most logical. Now, believe it or not, a lot of people are already analyzing this position on their own because there's not a whole lot of theory. For instance, bishop e2, simple move, b5, okay? And now, knight d5 is my favorite move here. This is a novelty that was played by Vidit in March 1st, 2022 against Shirov. And it wasn't played in a random tournament. It was played in the FIDE Grand Prix. And remember, FIDE Grand Prix is this very, very special tournament series that Nakamura and, well, who else? Who else qualified? Nakamura and, forget his name. This 2700 GM from Hungary. Rapport, there we go. Yeah, thanks for the reminder. So Nakamura and Rapport qualified to the candidates. So this is a tournament where you want to play your best novelty if you have it saved, right? And Vidit played this knight d5 move. But the original game, remember I mentioned Van Forest, he played a4. And after knight c5, this is a really cool idea. He played queen e3, allowing b4, and simply knight d5. And he's sacking the central pawn just like that. Black took, white played a5, fixing the dark square. This guy's a little weak. And the game continued. Knight takes. I mean, that's kind of logical. Queen takes, e6, castles, bishop d7, bishop d2, and white ended up winning the game. So you can analyze this game. Van Forest analyzed this with pretty detailed commentary in New in Chess magazine. So this was Tata Steel 2021. So this is a year ago. And this is the game that sort of made this line very, very visible at the top level. But strong players come along, improve it for black. Now it's played by a lot of players, right? So black players sort of anticipate this. And if you do have Giri's course on the Najdorf, I actually don't know if Giri updated this because I think Giri published it before this game. And Giri, as you guys recall, did a whole, I think, Chessable lifetime repertoire here. So this is important. But we also know that Vidit used to be Giri's second. He is extremely sharp theoretician. And he says, I'm going to play knight d5. And he played it against Shirov. And I think this is a very simple idea. Without even sacking the e-pawn right away, white is creating threats. So Shirov plays bishop b7. I think it's the best move. But first question for everyone, why not knight c5, attacking the queen? Exactly. So I think most people are getting this one. We simply insert this intermezzo, and white is not giving up the e-pawn. And I think after this, it's pretty obvious that it's white who is better. Yep, knight takes f6. Gf, and then you can just move the queen. Yeah, ef is just horrible, right? So gf, I think, is more logical. And you just move the queen. I don't know, queen e3 looks good. And now, again, this king, you don't really want to castle queenside. You weaken your queenside. You don't want to castle kingside. The g file is open. Exactly. Typically, in this structure, this d6, e7, f7, f6, e6 goes here. You get the bishop pair. And this is from the classical Sicilian that you guys have probably seen a lot of lectures on. Sam Shanklin is a big fan, many others. Here, you don't get the bishop pair. I also have the bishops. I think white's better. And so as a result, Shirov has to play this move bishop b7. By the way, knight takes d5 is absolutely horrible. Why? You just gave me a free outpost like that. The knight is already on d4. So this is very risky business. Okay, so now, for example, bishop b7, a4, white's already better, right? So black is getting some problems here. So as a result, bishop b7, Shirov's move, I think, is best. Vidit simply plays a4, undermining the side pawn. And again, if knight c5, he's ready to take on f6. So he's being kind of like smart, if you will, right? He doesn't want to give up pawns yet. Well, knight c5, I think, is forced. b4 is an interesting move. Knight takes b4, loses the e-pawn. But white, of course, can play in the style, right, of Grandelius, maybe sack. I mean, not in the Grandelius, in the Van Forest Grandelius, a5. I don't know, many options are possible you can take on f6, but this is another topic. Okay, knight c5 is the most logical move. And now knight takes f6, intermezzo, and we get into a very interesting structure as we discussed earlier. And after queen e3, the option for black is to win the central pawn. And let's see, Sherov, being an active player, says, well, I'm going to take on a4 first. The e-pawn is under attack. He's a pawn up. If he takes on e4 right away with the knight or with the bishop, the b-pawn is weak, right? And the game gets pretty sharp. So I don't think it's as good. Especially if you take with the knight, I feel like not only AB, but there's also bishop f3 ideas. Yeah, knight a4, knight b5 was his idea. Yeah, good job, Austin, for pointing out. So b takes a, black is simply pawn up. But as you know, in the Sicilian, safety of the king matters just as much, right? Even probably more than the material. And this knight is nice, right? Can't be dislodged. The a-pawn is stopping it. This bishop can't really develop easily. And Vidit simply plays f3. Now, I guarantee you, Vidit had this all in his prep, right? All of this. And Sherov is figured out move by move. It so happened that Sherov was figuring out the best moves, but probably at the cost of the clock, right? Remember, if you waste a lot of time in the opening, you're more likely to get into time pressure in the late middle game, end game, and there blunders do happen. So even though Vidit might have surprised Sherov, Sherov didn't really fall for any traps yet. Black is still okay, but time is on white's side in this game. White's about to castle. So let me show you what happened next. e5 is played, logical move. But risky, of course, because knight gets to f5. And of course, the follow-up was d5. Okay, here's a question from Austin. Should I play my prep instantly or take a minute to make sure? I guess I'm not sure what you mean by that, instantly. If you already have done the work at home, I don't think you should waste any time. All right, but maybe you mean by that question is if you really want to like hide the fact that this is your prep that you figure out at the board and take extra time to kind of tell your opponent that you're figuring things out at the board. Some people do that, especially if they have like a really killer novelty and they want to try to mask it. Yeah, so people have done that. Honestly, it doesn't really work as well as you think it does because, you know, strong players kind of sense it without even, you know, they kind of know chess so well that they can sense these moments, but people have done either way. Honestly, it's a matter of personal preference. Most top GMs don't do that. They just whip out just to show their opponent that this is all covered in my prep and save, of course, on the clock, right? So you see like Sam Shankland just whips out all his prep in less than 30 seconds. He may end up with more time if there's 30 seconds added than the game started by move like 15. That's very natural, right? But the transition from when your prep ends to when you have to start thinking on your own is not trivial, right? Because you have to start calculating and thinking, and you haven't transitioned into that mode yet, right? So it's easy to make a mistake. So I think that's a trap you yourself can fall into if you play too quickly. So you got to find the perfect balance. Anyway, so d5 is played, very logical move, and simply e takes d. Not bad. I want to introduce to you this interesting novelty, castles, that I looked at. This is actually quite typical for Sicilian defense to just sack. You want to take the e-pawn, just take it. I think black is not really going to take the pawn. But if he takes, there's this really unbelievable idea. Queen f2. This is not a human move, I have to tell you that. And the point is you're opening up the bishop, right? And all of a sudden, it's not easy for black to make a move. The bishop's going to get developed, the rooks get connected. I think this is very promising. Now, d4, I think, is the more likely move. What if now bishop e7? You mean after d takes e? Queen f2, bishop e7 here. Yeah, this looks quite risky, right? Because you're not going to castle. That's checkmate with queen g3. So bishop e7, I play bishop e3, and you're still not fully out of the woods. Yeah. So let's go back. d4, I think, is more likely move, at least more human move, in my opinion. Queen f2 anyways. And I don't know. What do you think, guys? Who is better here? I kind of like white visually because of this monster knight on f5. And I don't really see any future for the king. But yeah, black does have this massive pawns, and you're not going to open up the king that easily. It's not easy to get a 4 with this e-pawn hanging. Yeah, you can undermine c3. Yeah, I think his position is quite interesting. Okay, let's go back. So his move makes sense to me. E takes d. I'm sure he's still in his prep. Again, I don't know when white's prep finished, but this is quite logical, and simply queen f2. I actually like the move castles here too. Now, the idea is really spectacular, and I want you to try to figure this out, because it looks like you're walking into bishop c5 tempo. So knight b3. I gave this move question mark, but I want you to understand why. To me, it looks like, well, wow, bishop c5, you're going to get that queen lost, my friend. So why don't you try to take a moment or two and answer this question. Why knight b3 gives, I gave question mark to this move for black. Anyone? Write it in the chat. Ah, very smart. You gave a question mark because it's a bad move. But why is this a bad move? Knight g7, what? Knight g7? Rook d1, nope. No, try to really go deep into the position, guys. Why is knight b3 a bad move? Not rook d1, not knight g7. Not c4, although c4 is interesting, but I don't think c4 is good. Well, rook a4, remember, I'm going to play bishop c5, right? Take the knight. Take the knight. Who says take the knight? Rook d1. You guys are close. Queen c6. Take the knight. Take the knight. That's the right answer. Take the knight. But rook d1 is important to insert. Get an open file. I said that. Good job. But we're not done yet. Bishop c5 is coming. What is the follow-up? What's your follow-up? Knight d4. Who said sack it? Look at this. b4. Simple chess. No one guessed that one. Look at this, guys. We have monster bishops, knight, and this wide open king. What do you think about this? Is that a double exclam or what? Believe it or not, this position is completely lost for black. Completely lost. And the reason is this rook is worth 0 at the moment. 0, meaning that it's not even worth 1 point. It's completely useless. This rook, definitely not 5 points, right? Probably less. In a way, if you look at both rooks, right? This guy's about to come here. Both bishops, this guy, white feels to me has material advantage. right? We have rook c1, we have b5, we have knight d6. If castles, knight e7 wins the queen. Rook d6 ideas. I mean, it's just too many threats. I think black is just dead. Bishop c5, right? And then this. That's 1-0. And believe it or not, this is my analysis. I don't think Vidit saw this. Otherwise, he would have castled. But I think he was worried about knight b6. So knight e6, I think, is a better try. But obviously, it's not coming with the tempo. So white can simply get out of this. So yeah, this was a cool idea. But the move that he played made sense to me as well. Queen f2. So the bishop can develop. And now look what happens next. e4, Shirov is true to his style, playing aggressive. Knight e3, attacking the queen. Queen c6. Yes, Vidit did win. And now simply castle. And now, even though white's down material if you count the pawns, but these pawns are kind of useless, right? These guys are pretty weak, but the most important factor is black's king. Yes, so black has to play aggressively, but the problem is when you play aggressively and your king is really messed up like that, no cover, you can really get in trouble. So let me just quickly show you how white won the game. He got this nice b3 break. Takes. Look how open black's king is. King c6. I mean, knight b6, king's open. Bishop check. Bishop c4 tempo. Takes, check. Okay, now rook's under attack on b3. Now, the point was, if bishop takes, I think Sheriff won at e3. But e3 doesn't work. He played rook g8. Why doesn't e3 work, guys? Yeah, you see the problem is there's a pin, queen g3. Maybe he missed it from afar. Maybe he thought he has a nice attack here. Right? It does feel like, okay, maybe ef. Okay, this guy's a little weak. e3 is coming. Simply knight c4, tempo move. Rook, okay, rook d3 is logical. Bishop c2. With a couple of defensive moves, white is maintaining the piece. ef, g3, and oops, black ran out of attack. So rook c3, knight a5. Now white's taking over the initiative. What if rook takes f3? Let's see. Who can answer this question, guys? There's actually 0 threats. You just move the queen, right? Exactly, just move the queen. I don't know, queen b6, queen c5. You pick a square. Queen e2, maybe. I like active squares. Queen b6 looks good. Queen c5 looks good. All right, so let's get back. So yeah, all of this is bad news. But the game continued like this. Knight a5. And he simply won. the pawn and sheriff either flagged or resigned. I don't remember. But okay, of course, you're just down a piece. Yep. Wow, what a game, and really cool way, right, to right away pose some problems to your opponent. So Vidit's novelty definitely shocked Sheriff, both 2700s, and this just happened. But we're not done yet. Okay, I want to show you some other cool ideas. So let me go back to the beginning. So we looked at knight bd7 move. Let's look at the move e6. Now white has several setups. I like the move a4 just to stop b5. b6 typically played, bishop e2, bishop b7, right? Knight bd7. And now the second reason why queen on d3 is an excellent piece, the queen can get transferred to the king side. So this is exactly the idea that we've seen. Sometimes you play queen f3 early and then queen g3 in the Najdorf. In the Taimanov, you've seen this idea, right, guys? Queen on g3 is putting pressure here and here, and you're giving up a central pawn. And guess what? A lot of players will say, give me the central pawn. Brownstein played the move queen g3 and spent 58 minutes on that move. Wow. That's a lot of time on one move. Yeah, these days, If you spend 58 minutes, you're probably only going to have less than less than half an hour left. So knight takes e4 is the most principal move. Obviously, black doesn't have to take. You know, there is moves such h5, trying to maintain queen c7. But okay, this is the most principal move. And I want to show you the point. Okay, knight takes, bishop takes. And here we have come across another GM game. I think this was played either in Rapid or even Blitz. And this was played between, again, Van Forest and I think Duda as black. And white played the move rook e1, which is not a bad move, but the problem is after knight f6, it allowed black to consolidate. So he played bishop d2, which feels too slow. Black played d5, bishop f3, bishop takes. Yeah, Van Forest Duda online from 2021. Black's doing quite well, and he won the game. There's no attack. Okay, so let's go back. And here, guys, when you are a Sicilian chess player, you have to ask yourself a question. Why do I need to play so slowly with rook e1 and bishop d2? Why not bishop g5? That's right, Jed. Simple chess. This is my novelty. I don't think anyone has played this move before. I think I've played this maybe in Blitz, and it's not easy for black to to do something. Oh, did somebody play this? Somebody played bishop g5? Oh, no, yeah, this is my Blitz game. Yeah, so nobody has played this for white or black. Okay. At least there are no games in the database. So queen c7 has forced a lot of people type, right? Okay, logical move, just get out of the way. Now, just by insertion of bishop g5 and queen c7, it's day and night difference after my next move, rook e1. All I did, inserted these two moves, and black is on the verge of collapse. So do you see what the problem is? Knight f6 is not coming. But the problem is the e-file, right? Once the bishop moves, there's going to be massive threats. Let's say bishop b7. How can you finish the game? Yep, I think you guys are on the right track. Knight takes e6. Simple chess. Typical Sicilian, right? Just blow open the king. Intermezzo. Another check. And now what's the follow-up here for white? Let's see how good of an attacking player you are. Yeah, queen f4 looks good. I like rook e1 the best, though. And the point is, we're going to sack the entire house. Count how much white is down. Forced checkmate. So king g6, checkmate. Let's see, what else? King f8, check, and then mate next move. So king g8 is also forced mate. So just like that, black is done, toast. So that means probably his best try is bishop e7. But that's not an easy move to play, right? Giving up the g pawn. So this is typical Sicilian attacks right there. But we're not done yet. We're not done yet. So this is another plan. So we talked about, just quick summary, e5. Okay, we talked about knight bd7, the main line. We talked about e6 just now. My next one is g6. This is going into dragon-like territory where you know that white's not playing bishop e3, f3, queen d2, bishop h6, right? You might as well play g6. So this is taken into my next game. which let me open now. This is a game, Brian Smith against Mark Paragua. It's kind of like the Dragendorf, yeah. Now, this game is not in the database, or at least not yet in the database. It was played recently at the Marchand Open in upstate New York. Okay, so this is Grandmaster Brian Smith against Grandmaster Mark Paragua. Yeah, Dragendorf is a real thing. You guys don't know what Dragendorf is? So Dragon and Najdorf, you combine, you get Dragendorf. It's a funny name, but it's an opening. The idea is you kind of have two ideas in mind. So G6 is sort of like, I think here is my thought process. Like Mark Paragua did not expect this move. He's like, well, probably my opponent knows something with this, or even this. I'm going to play the move he probably analyzed the least, G6, and just throw him off his prep. Very logical idea, right? Just combine the two ideas. But the problem is Mark Paragua gets in trouble in this game really fast. Bishop G5 is played, Bishop G7, and simply castle. Again, the funny thing is the queen being on D3 is not that bad. It could be on D2, but on D3 is not bad. It could shift in some directions, enables to castle, protects the e-pawn. And now black should not castle. Black should play knight bd7. That's what Mark played. Who won with what in this game? You'll see shortly who won in this game. So knight bd7 is logical because you want to keep all your options open. You may want to castle, you may not want to castle. Let's keep going. F4, okay, typical Sicilian move. And of course, queen c7, typical Sicilian answer. And now Brian plays bishop e2. And here, believe it or not, Mark Paragua made a move. He's a grandmaster, after which it's with best moves, lights out, game over. Who wants to guess the move that black played here? E5. Ooh, you think a grandmaster may make this move? I don't know. To me, this looks kind of very, very unusual when the bishop's on G7. Queen takes C3. B5 is actually not a bad move. He did not play B5. No, he didn't mouse slip. This is actually over the board real game. This is not a blitz game. He played the most natural move in the world, and a lot of people are guessing correctly. He played castle. Now, how many of you, of course, I kind of told you it's a bad move, so you may now not be very honest, but how many would you seriously consider and play this move in a real game if you're black? Just be honest here. Okay, good. So I see a lot of people being honest in the chat. That's good. Yeah, you don't have to be a dragon player, but still, like, how could you not consider a move like that? That's the most natural move in the world. But believe it or not, guys, sometimes chess is a funny game. You play the most natural move in the world. He gets pawn stormed and under a huge attack. I think the best move, and maybe the better move, is the flexible move b5. Now, this is not in the database, right? And now h4 is not as powerful because the king is still on e8. And this position is really interesting. Now, would it, let's kind of put ourselves into black's shoes here. Why didn't he play that? I'm guessing he didn't like the move bishop f3 with idea e5. He probably saw bishop b7. And he probably saw the move knight d5. And he's like, I don't want to deal with this knight d5. Hop in, right, attacking into my face here. And if I take, the e file is weakened. But believe it or not, black is still completely fine here. But you have to find the best move. Once again, who wants to guess the best move here for black? Let's see what people are typing in the chat. Nobody got it right yet. Let's give you some more time. Nope, nope. Not e5, not rook c8, not castle long. Knight c5, no. I mean, maybe knight c5 is not bad, but not the best. Anybody else? Well, it's funny, right? How I told you a couple moves ago, the most natural move in the world is the losing move. Now it's the best move. Simply cold-hearted castle. Just give up that pawn. This is very dangerous, right? Because knight c5 is coming. And now it's a double-edged position. Yes, white has some attack, but look at this monster bishop. Look at the c-file. Look at the knight jump in. This is a very double-edged position, right? So h4 is a possibility, but you will see that this is playable for black. It's not as simple as the other one. So I think he missed, honestly, he missed this castles option. Probably the best move for black. So b5 was not played, castles was played, and now one-sided attack, h4. Do you guys really need to stop and calculate moves like h6 in here? Well, h6 was played in the game. Let's say you're playing a grandmaster. Let's say you're playing Magnus Carlsen. Are you going to play h4? Are you going to be too afraid because h6 is coming? How many of you who are facing Magnus Carlsen will be afraid to play h4 here? Come on. You know h6 is coming. Okay, anybody else? Yeah, good job. Don't care, Magnus Carlsen can take my piece. That's right, guys. You are strong enough of chess players to realize that this is not a threat. He can take your bishop, but with a wide open h-file, this knight get an attack and the queen transfer. It's checkmate, world champion, right? Don't be afraid of this. And yes, g4 is an interesting move here, but Brian plays much simpler. Simply f5. Why not open up the king, right? Trade the pawn defenses. Well, knight e5, you are giving up an outpost, but then queen e3. I don't know. Maybe Mark's daughter is here. Well, now she knows the best move for black if she were to repeat. Okay, f5. Well, the attack plays itself, right? We say in these positions, but Mark found incredible idea here for black. Well, the problem with knight e5 or knight c5, I'm just going to play queen e3, right? I'm going to try to make you take. Which move did Mark play here that really confused Brian? I thought that was a really good idea. Not h5, not e5. Well, black played d5. That's right, Venkata, good job. And Jed, d5. That's a typical Sicilian move. When somebody does some stuff on the wing, you counterplay in the center. He was putting a lot of effort into trying to destabilize white center with this move. Now it may seem like position is extremely complex. A lot of people will panic as white because there is no clear move, right? You have all these options. Do you take the pawn? Do you take this pawn? Do you try to trade here? Do you ignore everything and keep attacking? Right? So this is the next big moment of truth. Brian found the correct move here for white. Let's see if you guys can find the best move for white. Okay, so white to move. Can you find white's best move? Yeah, good job, Joshua. Bishop takes f6 is too soft, I think, no? Yeah, then what? You really want to attack. No, e takes d. E takes d is logical, but I think it's too slow. You see, guys, after e takes d, what is black's main idea? I can take queen f4 check, right? I can pick up that g pawn. Right, fg is logical. You're getting e6 square, but don't forget, I don't have to take back, right? I can insert some nice intermezzos like knight c5. So it's not too obvious to me as well. So whoever said the quiet move, Queen E3 is correct. I saw at least one person type it in the chat. This is really simple chess. Once again, you ignore everything and you're putting the pressure on the H pawn. Just like that, black is in big trouble. And all of a sudden, it's not easy for black to stop white's threats. This is a real problem now. Let's see how the game continued. But actually, things are not super simple. Of course, if you turn the engine on, it'll just say white is close to winning here. But during the game, not knowing that, it's not obvious, right? Like that white actually has a winning attack. So Mark simply took the bishop, says prove it to me. Brian took, and he played knight takes pawn. Very direct chess. Okay, so Brian logically traded this monster knight, and also his next move is quite logical to play queen h3, right? So there's a mate threat, right? This is a pretty serious threat. Black has two options, rook e8 or rook d8. He played rook d8. Well, no, it's not game over yet because queen h7, king f8. It's not checkmate. So this is where you have to show me you're an attacking monster, meaning that you got to find the best moves. There's not like a lot of moves that win here for white. There's like a very narrow road, but you got to find it accurately. So the first one I think is quite obvious to everyone. It's queen h7 check. Okay, now it's actually obvious to me and maybe to a lot of players, but like when I showed this to one of my students as a calculation exercise, he started with f takes g, which actually loses for white. Okay, can you see why this is losing for white? Check. King b1, yes, keep going. And now what's the key move? Now there's a key move here for black. Well, fg, no. Simpler. Okay, you got to stop the check, right? Yeah, simply knight f8. That's it. f7 is guarded. Queen's under attack on h3. And oops, the move order does matter. So there, see, you can already mess it up and lose. So that's why inserting this check is important. Cut away this option. Of course, pawn takes. Big threat if fg, knight e6. So the next move is logical, check. And queen takes pawn. So both players probably saw this far. Black did not really have a lot of options, but Brian has to find only way to win. So let's see if you guys can find. White has only narrow path to victory here. So again, please type it in the chat. Wow, you guys are really good. So far, everyone is getting this one. Easy. Knight e6. Simple chess. But you may think the game is over. You are mistaken because you're going to be faced with a very serious grandmaster resistance here. Of course, black has to take. Now it looks like game over. This knight can't move because rook d8, bishop can't move, queen f7, king can't move its mate. I'm going to play queen f6. And just like that, I'm asking you, are you winning here as white? Are you going to take on f6? What are you going to play? No. Okay, a lot of people are getting the next move more or less accurate, although there's a mix. People are getting it. Some people are getting it, some are not. The correct move here is, of course, g4. Oh, you're never going to take this queen. Just look at the material imbalance. EF, right? If black can get these guys out, he's actually got a pretty serious imbalance in his favor. So this is logical. And one would think that, okay, g5, it's almost game over. But no, Mark finds a remarkable idea. Rook e8, out of nowhere. The point being is that after Brian's g5, he plays queen f5. Yes, that's right. And now white has only move that wins the game. Only move. If you don't find that move, you're toast. So let's see what people are going to write. How many of you vote for bishop g4? I see a lot of people type in bishop g4 quickly. Me. Bishop g4 is not right. Not right. Knight e5. And black is totally in the game. 3 minor pieces. I'm playing for win, guys. Wait, never mind. That's right, never mind. So the correct is the other direction. Brian could have gotten this wrong. Bishop c4 is the right move. And now the funny thing is black has 0 moves that stop the simple threat. That's game over. So bishop c4 is the only winning move. I think the engine shows some stupid move like rook d4, but of course that makes no sense. This is much more human. That's it. Bishop c4 is game over. Not rook takes f5. Okay, this is wrong. Move order business again. Why is this wrong, guys? Yeah, of course, e6 and oops. So there were plenty of time for white to mess this up. We got to give credit to black for such really amazing creative defensive. Of course, if you're an engine's always going to find the refutation. But during the game, you know, Brian might have missed bishop c4 and played bishop g4, and now it's anybody's game. So, yeah, this is what happened here. Really, black made only one mistake in this game. So if we go back here, go back all the way to where black castled, I think this to me is really the only mistake. After that, I couldn't find an easy way for black. Such a natural move, right? So now let's quickly summarize what we've learned here today. So I know I gave you a lot of information, but let's do a quick summary. First of all, right, nobody takes this move queen d3 seriously. It's number 16 or 17 in the list. Everybody thinks this is just a garbage move, right? Nobody has that move analyzed deeply. We just saw lots of incredible examples, right? We saw that e5, the straightforward way, doesn't work. Knight f5, take d5, bishop g5, castles, lots of play there. The main line we also covered, right? Very, very interesting positions, very fresh, okay? So if you do your prep against the Najdorf, like let's say you are the Najdorf player, you've never seen queen d3, and like as Mark Farrago, you react with something g6 to try to throw white off. Even there, you don't have full confidence because the attack in the Sicilians could untangle very, very fast. All right, so the moral of the story is, if you're a Najdorf player, you better know your sidelines. Queen d3, just one out of many sidelines. You know, knight b3 is also a move, and many others that we talked about. Rook g1, right? Bishop d3. So queen f3 is a move, by the way. But because such top players, Van Forest, Magnus himself played queen d3, V did, they are specialists, meaning that they've analyzed this move. They probably know the antidote too, right? But the problem is their opponents are faced with new positions. And if they didn't analyze them at home as black, you see what happened to Sheriff, like Vidit against Sheriff. Sheriff played all these great aggressive moves and still got into trouble. Okay, so do you guys have any questions for me about specifically this line or rare lines at the opening and stuff like that? I'm staying until 3 a.m. putting this in my prep. Okay, so if you do play the Najdorf, you better, yeah, you better at least have an idea, right? If you turn the engine on, the engine may kind of guide you for black. There is not necessarily one move that refutes queen d3. I'm sure black has, even this move g6 we saw is playable. But the thing is, if you don't have a plan, if you don't have a clear setup that you're going to play as black, you could get into trouble, as we saw these top guys. After this, I doubt I will ever play the Najdorf. Yeah, so that's typical, right? Every time there's a new idea against your favorite opening, now you're worried. Now, let's talk about from white perspective. How many of you who are E4 players want to play Queen D3 now in your tournaments? Who are E4 players? Anybody? Me, okay. So these examples, you like this? So some players like it, some players are not so sure. Now, if you don't have a setup against the Najdorf, right? And you open up database and there's thousands of games on Bishop G5, you know, or the English with F3, Bishop E. I think this is a good surprise weapon because there's so few games and they're only recent games, meaning that you are creating your own theory. So if you create your own little chess-based file, you play it in a couple of practice games, and then you come in as a surprise with this move. I think this is something interesting. Okay, so yeah. So if you want a PGN of this, I don't know if I can just give you the PGN, but I'm sure if you watch this lecture and recording, you can just easily create your own PGN. I highly advise that when you are creating your own files, you should create your own PGN with your own notes, right? Because when you are yourself creating your own notes, you will remember it better and you will know the ideas. So if you want this, my recommendation is use the database, you know, either ChessBase or any other online databases, create a little file, make sure E5 isn't there, E6 isn't there, now B7 is your main line, G6, right, Paragua, have ideas what you do for white, and for black, just pick one out of all these moves, analyze them deeply, make sure you know how to counter all of white's ideas, and then you can play it as black. You're probably going to reach really interesting position for both sides, and you know it's going to be a fun game rather than memorizing some deep Bishop G5 theory 20 moves deep and some perpetual or some draw, or maybe 30 moves deep. So I think this is the lesson. All right, any last minute questions for me? Okay, let me know. Nope. Okay, anybody else in the chat? Again, please ask me in the chat. Okay, no. Okay, well, if not, then what do you think is second best player? Oh, what I mean, the world? What I think is the second best player in the world after Magnus? Well, I mean, you can look at the rating. You can say Ding is the second best player, but of course, Firouzja and Ding are very close. I think the real test is whoever wins the candidates, right? I mean, if let's say Nakamura wins the candidates, he's going to challenge Magnus. He deserves to be, right? I think whoever wins the candidates is probably the best second player in the world. But it's very close, right? All of these guys are very close by rating. Your question should probably be, who do you think is the favorite to win the candidates? I would say Caruana is my number one, and probably Ding would be my number two. Although Nepo is very close number two for me. So probably Caruana, Ding, and Nepo. Among those three, I would probably pick Caruana. So Ding, maybe, yeah, Sam Shanklin picked Ding. Ding is on fire and he's motivated, but I don't know, he hasn't traveled outside of China in such a long time. It's going to be in Spain. And if you remember, guys, when Caruana was only 10 years old, I think 10, maybe 12, he moved to Spain. So for him, Madrid, where the candidate is like his second home. So I feel like Caruana is going to be more comfortable in that setting. Whereas Ding, it's like a big question mark for me. Exactly, yeah. So Caruana is definitely my number one choice. All right, with that, let's stop the lecture here. And good luck to everyone. Hope you may get to use some of the ideas here. All right, thank you, guys. Bye-bye.